Podcast SEO honestly sometimes seems like this mysterious thing that people talk about being important, but no one actually knows anything about. But today we are getting into the details all about it. I'm joined by Kara Duncan from the Kara Report to talk all about how podcasting fits into an SEO first marketing strategy without turning your business into a constant content machine. We talk about Pinterest, we talk about show notes, we talk about blogs, we talk about backlinks, we talk about all the things that you need to know if you are just diving into the world of podcast SEO. So grab your notebook because this is going to be a good one. Welcome to the Podcast Cafe, where we're serving up everything you need to know about podcasting, from tips, stories, and strategies for podcasters from podcasters. I'm your host, Hayleigh Hayhurst, the founder of Espresso Podcast Production, a full-service podcast agency helping business owners, creatives, and thought leaders launch and grow their shows. Whether you're just starting out or want to take your podcast to the next level, this is the place for you. Each week, we'll dive into practical tips, actionable strategies, and of course, stories from other podcasters so that you can build up a podcast that you love and that works for your business. So grab your coffee, get comfortable, and let's get started. Welcome to the Podcast Cafe. Hey, Kara, welcome into the Podcast Cafe.
Hi, thanks so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, I am so excited to be chatting with you. I was recently on your show, and now it's fun to flip the tables, and now you're on mine. So I'm just really excited to get into everything that you do with the Kara Report and also everything you do with your business. But before we get into all of that, I have to know, what is your go-to coffee order?
I honestly drink so much coffee that I love to shake it up. Like, I would say my go-tos are like caramel macchiato or like classic vanilla latte, but like I'm down to try whatever.
Yeah. No, do you go to a lot of coffee shops or do you usually make it at home?
I a mix. Like, where I live, I don't have access to like super cute coffee shops. I'm like kind of in the burbs where we have like Tim Hortons in Canada or like Starbucks, obviously. But I love a cute coffee shop anytime I can go. But I do have an espresso machine at home. Because, yeah. It's a daily habit. Yeah.
I feel like it's dangerous to be around a lot of coffee shops. And like, side note, I went to a Tim Hortons once, or I've been a few times, but one time I went and he asked me how many creams I wanted in my coffee, and like my American brain was not computing what that could possibly mean. So I said 2. Yeah. And he did whatever he did back there. I got my coffee. I was like, what the heck? What do you mean? And I was like, what? And he was like, in it. And I was like, in my coffee. I was like, whatever. So
yeah, I don't know, make it magic.
Memory.
Yeah.
Right. But okay, we're going to get into all things podcasting. So why don't you tell us more about the Kara Report?
Yeah, for sure. So on the business side, I run an agency that does done-for-you blogging and Pinterest services for mostly service providers, course creators, coaches, that kind of thing.
So when you started the Kara Report, what was the goal with that? How long have you had it for?
Yeah, for sure. So it's so strange because I started in the wedding industry. I was doing destination wedding planning, and how I got into that was I was like a lot of wedding planners, like planning my own destination wedding. And then I started getting so frustrated by the lack of information online that I started a blog. And then that blog started to generate traffic. And then I built the business from it. And then that was kind of like the thing that I was like known for. Like at the time, it was like a newer kind of strategy. So everyone's like, how are you getting clients? And I was explaining blogging and Pinterest. And then they were like, but how?
Yeah.
And so then during the pandemic, when travel kind of slowed, I was like, what am I going to do for money? And so I just offered it as a service for other people, and I have never went back. That business still runs, but I'm not the one like doing it anymore. So yeah, that's how it's evolved.
Very cool. And at what point did the podcast come into play?
I just started the podcast January 2024, so we're like right at the 18-month mark.
Nice.
Yeah.
What inspired you to start that? You do so much with SEO. Was the goal more content?
I would say, honestly, I think that you kind of like go through seasons in business, right? And I think I was just kind of like bored of having the same kind of like, so what I do is pretty niche, right? Blogging and Pinterest. And I was craving kind of like to have more how do I say this? Like, I wanted to have more like business conversations that didn't necessarily make sense on Instagram. Every time I kind of tried to like post something about like what I was feeling about business, it kind of felt like business coachy vibes, and that's like not what I wanted, because that's not what I do. So I had that kind of like craving. And then I also noticed, honestly, one of my clients always says like success leaves clues, and I'm like, my most successful clients have podcasts. Right? So I'm like, I think that is not a coincidence.
Yeah.
So,
Definitely.
yeah.
Definitely. I just saw a stat that like if you have a podcast, your sales are like 55% better or something like that. Like
I am not surprised. Yeah.
yeah. And so you do a mix of solo episodes and guest episodes. How did you decide on the format for that?
I would say I kind of wanted a mix, but I would say I only wanted a mix because that's kind of what I see other people doing, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of like when you get started and you're like kind of copying what other people do. And now I would say I'm really trying to lean into like more solo episodes. I really think they're like more impactful for my own business. I don't know if you find the same thing, but I think I've actually heard on your show, it's like people do want to connect with the host. And on one hand, guest episodes are a lot easier because it's like you just kind of have to show up and ask whatever you want. You don't have to like prepare as much, especially when you have a fabulous editor doing the editing for you, right? Because guest episodes can be a little trickier to edit.
Yeah.
But if that's being done for you, guest episodes I feel like are a lot easier on the host. But I do think solo episodes are kind of more impactful in the podcasting space. But I do like having conversations, but yeah.
I agree. I do a mix
Long-winded
of
answer.
both too. I think that it's just fun to do interviews and then just the connection piece with the solos. But your solo episodes are a great length. They're around 30 minutes, and so are the podcast episodes. So I know when we all start, we do look for other people for inspiration, especially like with my clients. I do a full market research for them when we're getting started to see what other people in the industry are doing, then we can go from there. But you're 79 episodes in as of the time of recording. At what point did you start finding your own stride, and maybe do you check the data of your podcast?
I do check the data. I'm like not as much as I probably should.
That's
I
okay.
get like the weekly Buzzsprout, like how many downloads, whatever they send it on the Monday, and I always look at that just to kind of get like a pulse check. And then I have an Airtable that's like, you know, average listen, average length. Like I do try to look for patterns probably like every like quarter, maybe every 6 months if I get really busy. So I do definitely do that. And then I think I would say it took me like 6 months, honestly, to get in like the flow of doing it and just like used to coming up with topics and used to, you know, just like getting ahead on things and like having spare episodes batched. Like I would say it took me like 6 months before I was like, it was not like something I was thinking about every single day.
Totally.
To keep track of.
You're like, what's going on? And no, honestly, I don't recommend tracking your stats more than every quarter because I think it's just hard to keep up on it. And then it also influences decisions that maybe don't need to be decided on yet. But I have lots of episodes on all of that because, yeah, no. So what you're doing is perfect.
Oh, good. Yeah. Sometimes I feel like, I don't know, you hear so much noise in the online space, like, look at the data. If you're not looking at the data, what are you doing? But then it's like, if I get a low episode download one week, sometimes I'm like, but that episode needed to be out there.
Exactly. 100%. So with the content that you're creating, since you do have, you know, your main business of marketing SEO, what are some ways that podcasting has helped grow your business?
Yeah, so I just kind of like peeked at the numbers, and podcasting in the last, like if I look year over year, I am up like triple. Like what is that, like 200% or I don't know, I always mess up the percents, but my traffic has tripled since I started my podcast. And I feel like a lot of that is due to one, I think when you have a podcast in your show notes, you're naturally linking to your website, which increases your like backlink, you know, domain authority to Google. And then also I do weekly blog posts for the podcast that all rank for their own keyword. And then I know we're going to talk about this, but like putting them on Pinterest, which is more backlinks, more visibility, like Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I think a lot of times, like, I'm gonna say this like so much because I feel like I'm always like fighting with the online space as a concept, but it's like so often we're like, oh, if you don't get to a million impressions in like 20 days, like what are you doing? But you're like, when I look at like a year where I like put my head down and worked and then I tripled my traffic, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, no, that is awesome. I think that'll inspire a lot of people for sure. So thanks for sharing that. I mean, that that in itself, like you said, you started because your most successful clients had podcasts. You were like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
Did you expect for that to happen?
I would say I didn't expect it to increase as much as it did because I was already blogging. Here's the thing. In theory, like if you looked at my ClickUp, I was blogging weekly. However, I do know sometimes I didn't get to it. Sometimes I skipped a week, right? So I think like with podcasting, one of the best things about having like a regular show is that it has kept me so accountable. Like I do have an episode that goes out every week. I mean, I'm not going to die if I don't. Like, if something comes up, like one week I had laryngitis, I obviously didn't have an episode.
Yeah, no.
But like for the most part, like I have content going out every week. And then I am also like, since I market my business mostly on blogging and Pinterest and, you know, other SEO kind of platforms, I sometimes find it really hard to stay consistent on Instagram. And when I don't have time, I kind of consider that like my cherry on top marketing, honestly. Like if I have time for Instagram, great. If I don't, I don't. But having a podcast, I'll show up there at least once a week, even if it's just a story, even if it's just like one static post that's like, hey, I have a new episode. So I think like all of those things contributed to the fact that the website traffic grew, but I don't think that I would have expected it to grow so much when I launched my website in 2020. It's like, so it had 4 years before that to get to where I was.
Right. And then all of a sudden, once the podcast comes in, I mean, plus you have the SEO background. So I think a lot of podcasters don't really they don't see the importance in it. But what I've been talking to a lot of people about is when we are trying to learn about something new, we do look up keywords. Well, at least the people I'm talking to, and myself included, we look up keywords in like Apple Podcasts or Spotify of topics that we want to learn about. So when you have that in there, that might be how someone finds your podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do pretty links or redirects for all of my podcasts. I don't know if that's something that you do where it's like, you know, thecarereport.com/1 whatever the episode number is. And what's cool about that is I can see how many times that link was clicked. And like you would think, like, I'm sure you see in the data, it's like people go back and listen to your earlier episodes all of the time. So it's cool to see like episode 10 or whatever. Maybe when I first put it out, it had like 20 clicks, right? And now I'm like, this link has been clicked 324 times. And I don't know like when those 324 times happen, but like since episode 10, like it's pretty crazy.
Yeah, I mean, podcasting can be found for so long, so
Totally.
it's great that you have that tracking. When it comes to repurposing the podcast, tell us about your process.
Yeah, so if it is, I don't do video for my solo episodes. I know I probably should, but for interviews, I will always pull the best clips. And then I try to share like one to the feed, and like I try and do like one or two extra ones to my stories too. Just, I don't necessarily want my feed to just be podcast content because like I said, my podcast, even though it's aligned with what I sell, it's not like solely like the blogging show. So I'll do that, and then I'll always do a full blog post like we kind of talked about, which is like more than just a couple paragraphs. It's like literally like you could read the blog and get the same information out of it. And then I'll do 5 pins on Pinterest to different boards at the time. And then what else do? I pull out the best quotes and I try to put them on threads. That's kind of like my main things. And with Pinterest, I would say like I'm always pinning older episodes. So like once a month, I'll go through my Pinterest data and find what episodes are performing best or what episodes are not performing that I want to be performing. Like if it is something especially specific to like my offer suite, and just create more and more pins every month. Even if the episode's like a year old, I don't care.
Yeah. Do you think that every podcaster should be on Pinterest?
I think so. Yeah, honestly, like, I mean, it depends a little bit on niche, but it doesn't depend as much as you think, honestly.
Okay, tell us
Like,
more.
I would just say, like, I think sometimes Pinterest gets, like, pigeonholed into, like, weddings, home decor, food, bloggers, you know what I mean? But the reality is, like, people go to Pinterest for so many things, like, all different kinds of projects. And pins show up on Google too. So, like, literally anything anyone is searching. And I'm always a little like, obviously, I'm a bit biased, but it's also like, even if you're like, sure, your ideal client is not on Pinterest, the fact that Pinterest boosts your overall site authority is still huge.
Yeah. No, that's a really good
Yeah.
point because, I mean, for the most part, the listeners are business podcasters, but
Yeah.
I just put out an episode with someone who is like a movie reviewer, and like,
Yeah.
I feel like even with that, that would be a really good way to utilize Pinterest. So, what does that look like tactically for anyone who's like, oh my God, another place to promote my podcast? Like, what actually goes into it?
Yeah, for sure. So honestly, even just like, I want to step back and talk about like when they're business podcasts. I feel like, I don't know about you, but like when I started my business, I went to Pinterest, like, and was like, where do I start my business? And I think Pinterest is a really good place to catch people early on in their journey, which is something to consider. Like, oftentimes we're like working with maybe more advanced business owners that can afford to like pay for our services. But if you catch them in the early stages, they become like locked on to you. They become like, you know, who Amy Porterfield was like when we all started our businesses 10 years ago. Do you know what I
Literally,
mean?
yeah.
Like, they're like, oh, this is like my person. This is the first person I think of. And I think that's like really special. And when people make these like big life changes, like starting a business, like getting a brand new website, like doing whatever, it's like Pinterest is often where they go. And then in terms of like tactical process, I would say I I mean, I have the same Pinterest templates that I use every single week for the most part, and I use them. I pin the same on Pinterest as I do on Instagram stories. So I'm like creating those graphics anyway. I feel like most podcasts, especially when you have like a guest on, you're sending them graphic options. So it doesn't really take much more to throw them on Pinterest. Sometimes I'll throw the clips up on Pinterest too. Pinterest can be like a little funny with sizes, so like it doesn't always work, but
Okay.
I mean, with Pinterest, it's kind of a more is more platform. It's not
Yeah.
like a everything is curated like your Instagram grid. It's like, you know what, play with different brand colors if you want to, throw up clips if you want to, like it doesn't matter as much. And then for pin titles and pin descriptions, I will literally take the whole blog post, or if you're not doing a blog post, take the transcript. You can even like put it in ChatGPT and be like, hey, listen, like I want this to kind of capture like these main keywords. Can you write Pinterest titles and descriptions for me? Because I mean, you might want to edit it slightly, but nobody reads Pinterest titles and descriptions, truly. Like,
Okay.
honestly, do you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah.
So I think that that's like one of the places that copy and pasting with AI is like totally fine.
Yeah.
Like, just get it out there. So that with the titles and descriptions, I also think like it is so easy to create graphics that are like the exact title of the website is like going on the graphic, right? But I also think ChatGPT or like whatever AI tool can give you like different angles to take too, which can be interesting. Like if we were talking about like how to use blogging in Pinterest, it could be like 3 rules you must follow, or the mistakes you're making on blah blah blah, and like just like finding different ways to like angle the episode,
Yeah. A little
which
bit
is
like
fun.
YouTube in that sense.
Yeah, exactly, right? So I think, and Pinterest can give you great data if you're like, you know, with podcasting, you have like one chance to choose a title. You can change it later, right? But like for the air date, you have one chance. And on Pinterest, it's like, okay, out of the like 5, 10 graphics I've made for this episode, like this angle consistently performs best. Does it also perform better on these other platforms?
Yeah. Okay. I like that. So, you said that you do about 5 pins per episode, correct?
Yeah.
Is that like where other people should start too? 5?
I think so, yeah. If you do like 5 and then So like an easy Pinterest strategy, let's say I create 5 Pinterest graphics. I pin one Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, right? Because you don't want to just like dump them all on the same day. But then if you pin them to like 3, 4, even 5 different boards, like just do it once a week. So like the pin number 1 that you made for Monday, pin it like once a week onto different boards and do the same on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. It sounds like a lot, but like if you use a Pinterest scheduler like Tailwind or whatever, it doesn't really take any extra time.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah.
And you help your clients with this stuff, right?
Yeah, definitely. And like I would say like it compounds too. Like if you were just pinning your episodes and you weren't like going back to create pins for old episodes and blog posts or like literally that was all you were doing. Over time, if you're pinning to 3 to 4 boards, that would mean you're pinning like 4 to 5 times a day.
Oh,
Right?
that's a good
Because
point, yeah.
the next week you're like building on it. So,
No, that's a really good point. Okay, cool. No, I love that. I mean, I've always heard how beneficial Pinterest can be for podcasters, but I think it
yeah.
really is an underutilized tool.
I think it's like any tool that is not like super fast wins, right? Like we kind of talked about like the journey. It's like maybe you're catching people that are too early to hire you, or maybe, you know, they're like listening to one podcast episode and then they listen to you for like a year before they hire you, right?
Yeah.
So, but it's so worth it.
Yeah, totally. No, I love that. You also tap into private podcasting. You have a private podcast all about marketing. I just added it to my Spotify, so I'm going to give it a listen later. Tell us more about it and where people can find it, but also what the thought process was behind starting a private podcast.
Yeah, for sure. So you can find it at thecarereport.com/private-podcast. And basically, I was looking for a new email opt-in that I thought my ideal clients would actually care about because, like most advanced business owners, they don't really want another PDF or like necessarily. So I wanted something like that. And then because my podcast, I'm not like hard selling every episode, I also wanted like a medium where I could like walk someone through my process. And like, yeah, even if they don't hire me, you're going to get a lot out of it. My hope is. But if you are interested in hiring me, like there's 7 episodes, they're like 10 minutes each. Somebody could literally like download it from my website, binge it on 1.5, be done in like half an hour. And my goal is that they would feel really confident that hiring me is a good idea. So it's like, I wouldn't say the podcast is like hard selling, but it is very much like, this is my process, this is what I do, this is why it's important. So you'll get something out of it even if you're just like curious about blogging and Pinterest. But I really do see it as more of like a, people can get warmed up to me like really fast.
Yeah, I love it. It's very similar to the limited series idea.
Yeah.
Where people can like binge it and not know about you on a Monday and ready to hire you on a Friday, that type of mindset. So
Exactly.
no, I think that's great. And you host it on Hello Audio, correct?
I do. Yeah. One thing that I love about Hello Audio is that I can see like, if you downloaded it, I can see your email address, how many episodes you've listened to. Hello Audio also automatically sends reminders. So like if you download it and then like if you download it on my website, the access code or whatever it is, and then you don't actually listen to it for the first 7 days, it'll send you like a little reminder. And like in today's world where we're all like squirrel brains a little bit, it's like so helpful.
Totally. Yeah. I think anything automated makes life easier
Right.
for sure. For sure. Well, is there anything else that you think the audience needs to know about blogging, Pinterest, and podcasting?
Yeah, I would say I feel like sometimes there's like more and more pressure to do more when there's so much opportunity that gets wasted with like what you're doing right now. Like chances are you're already putting a ton of effort into your episodes and stuff. So like to sprinkle in things like blogging and Pinterest, it's pretty like low lift week to week once you get in the flow of it, even though it feels like a lot to start.
Yeah.
And one thing that we talked about on my podcast, Hayleigh, was like, I didn't expect the benefits of podcasting to be so wide. I expected it to be more like put out episodes and like maybe get clients, you know, eventually. But I have been like so surprised with how much podcasting has benefited my business. Like I literally recommend it to everyone. I get to have great conversations with people that I genuinely enjoy talking to. I feel like it automatically makes you look like an authority even if you're not. I do feel like the data and like the kind of like unofficial data, like I love seeing like how many DMs I'll get over a certain topic when it like really surprises me. Like I had an episode that was like mistakes you're making with your virtual assistant. I'm obviously not an expert in that, but like I've hired virtual assistants before. So having like that's like one of my most listened to episodes, like things like that. And like not even most listened to because that can feel really dry, but like people will DM me and be like, wow, I just listened. I totally relate to XYZ. So I think like things like that, like podcasting, I will just like literally recommend it and like recommend hiring someone also to do all the post production and all that other stuff because that can make it really unsustainable because it is a lot of work. But when you just get to like show up and be the talent, it's like 10 out of 10 recommend.
100%. No, thanks for sharing that. Do you have someone doing your post production?
I do. I have a mixed match system, if I'm going to be honest. Like, I do have an editor, and then I have someone on my team that pulls the, like, clips for me and stuff.
Okay, yeah, no, because I think doing, like, as you just said, doing it all on your own, it's a different brain to do the production and then show up as the talent, the creative. So definitely if anyone is DIYing the whole thing, like see if there are pieces that you can, maybe you just need an editor, maybe you need a full producer, maybe you just need, someone to repurpose the content. There's options out there. And I think that a lot of people don't know that.
Yeah, and I would say like one thing is like if you're looking for someone to do it all for you, which totally relate because that's so nice, like make sure you're like having somebody like Hayleigh, obviously if you're listening to the show, but like that gives you feedback. Because one of the things is like because I have kind of a mixed match system is someone was also doing like the full blog post for me, someone on my team that does it like my way or whatever, but I kind of had to take that back because I found that I wanted to actually listen to the episode to like hear how it's going out. And then I learned like maybe annoying things that I do that I might not have noticed because no one would have told me, right? It's not really their job. The editor is the editing, the whatever does the editing. But if you're like working with someone that will like give you feedback, give you like a third person point of view, it's super helpful.
Yeah, and I will have those conversations with my client. They're awkward sometimes though. I'm like, I mean, not all of my clients listen to their episodes before they go live. They just kind of trust me with the process and like, great, love that. But I do assign them some episodes to listen if, even for myself, there's things I say all the time and I listen to myself every single week. But I think it's more like I don't say when I'm talking anymore. That's something that podcasting has helped me with.
Sometimes listening to your own episodes is really humbling. But sometimes, and like honestly, I feel like I'm a 1.5 speed listener. So listening to myself on 1, I'm like, I can't believe anyone could ever listen to this.
Well, I have a few rapid fire questions for you before we wrap up. My first one is, do you have any podcast listening pet peeves?
I feel like I personally don't love when episodes go really long unless they're really well done. Like when an episode's like an hour and a half, I'm kind of like, oh, could we like not get to the point faster is my personal preference. And then also when people don't edit their episode really well and that they have lots of like loud parts and quiet parts and you're like kind of like, especially, and I know this about myself is sometimes I will have like an annoying laugh and if it wasn't like edited, it's like a shriek in your ear. Like I was literally listening to a podcast this morning and I'm like, I feel like the podcast episode had been recommended, so I really wanted to listen to it, but the hosts, it was like 2 co-hosts and they were like giggling, kind of like laughing, and I'm like, oh, it's like I don't know. I don't mind laughing, it's just like when it's high pitched and like
no, that's so funny. I have one client and she's like, can you take out my hyena laugh? And I'm like, that's so funny.
Yes, exactly. I feel like, that so hard.
She comes up with different animals sometimes. I'm like, oh my God, like it's so funny. But no, I agree. Okay, other than, the genre of marketing, what is your favorite genre to listen to?
Ooh, that's a good question. I would say Outside of like business and marketing, I don't listen to a ton of podcasts unless I like who they're interviewing. So like I'll listen to like the Call Her Daddy, and I'm not like a Call Her Daddy fan. Like I don't not like her, but it's just like that wouldn't be my go-to. But I feel like lately she's had the best guests.
Such good
So I'm
guests.
like, yeah, I'm listening to this.
Yeah.
For sure. I do feel like she is. I was actually watching her documentary, and I was like, I remember first hearing about her podcast from a friend or whatever, and then I was like, okay, this is like obviously a single girl's podcast, like it's not really like my vibe at the time. And then now like watching it evolve to where she's like such a good interviewer, and she has the best guests. Like I don't listen every week, but I do tune in when there's a good person.
Me too. She's a boss. Okay, do you have any podcasts that you recommend people listen to, or some favorites?
I feel like it's like an obvious answer for us, but like I love the Ambitious podcast, and I love the Breakthrough Brand podcast with Elizabeth McCravey. That was like one of the first podcasts I ever listened to, and I've just like been a continued listener.
No, I love those. Yeah. I love Kate's podcast. I listen to it all the time.
It's the only long episode one that I can listen to because I feel like she does do it really well.
She does. I agree 100%. What is one thing that you wish more people knew about podcasting?
Oh, that's so interesting. I think one thing that I wish people knew, I think like how much fun it is, honestly. Like I feel like sometimes people like forget that like you can do whatever you want. Sometimes when you're like in the planning stage, like for myself, I like literally remember like signing up for multiple podcasting courses and being like doing all the like worksheets and like taking it so seriously. But I actually just like love throwing up an episode talking about like literally whatever I want.
Yeah. 100%.
Right.
I love that. My last question for you is, what has podcasting taught you about yourself?
Oh, that's a good question. One thing that I would say that I guess is like kind of about myself is you can like really build up confidence, like you were saying, when you just commit to doing something. And like the fact that I've been able to like do an episode every single week since I started is pretty cool. Like I haven't necessarily been able to commit to that like with other platforms. So it's cool to like watch that like growth.
I love that. Ugh,
Yeah.
Kara, you're
and I would
killing
also
it.
say, I was thinking about this with new podcasters too. It's like your first episode might just be like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And you might think you can never record a long, I'm just going to keep these short and like whatever. But I do think that's a muscle that you like build.
100%. I agree. No, Kara, you're crushing it. I love
Yeah.
it. Thank you so much for joining me in the podcast cafe. Where can people connect with you?
Thanks so much for having me, Hayleigh. And my website is thecarareport.com. Everything is The Cara Report. So it's like you can find that. My Instagram, my podcast is literally called it, like everything. So
Perfect.
easy to find.
Awesome. I will put that in the show notes, but I really appreciate you, and I know some people are going to be messaging you with some Pinterest questions, so
Yeah,
I'm excited for that.
Thank you so much, Hayleigh.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining me in the podcast cafe. I hope you're leaving with fresh ideas and inspiration to take your podcast to the next level. Remember, podcasting is a journey and you don't have to do it alone. I'm here to help you every step of the way. Let's connect. Be sure you follow me on Instagram at Espresso Podcast Production or visit espressopodcastproduction.com for more tips, resources, and behind the scenes insights. I'd love to hear about your podcasting journey. If you've enjoyed today's episode, make sure you hit subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if you're feeling extra generous, I'd love it if you could leave me a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. It helps more podcasters just like you find the show. Until next time, grab your coffee, keep creating, and I'll see you back here in the podcast cafe.